Alright everybody, welcome back to the NFL season. Just like last year, we have another NFL season. Woo! For the past 99 years, there's been this thing called the NFL where teams play against each other with a ball and try to score. Wild stuff. And this year is no different. I know you clicked on this video wanting predictions, and guess what? You got it. So without further ado, here are my predictions for the 2019-2020 NFL season. Starting out in the AFC East, I have the Patriots in first because that's where they will always finish with Brady and Belichick, and I expect nothing different from them, and I'm not going to waste your time talking about them anymore because we all know this drill. In second, I have the Jets, and I love the Jets. I love their new uniforms. Sam Darnold keeps getting better. They have an offensive coach. They spent a lot of money in the offseason, so they should be able to make a competitive team this year, and I don't expect anything crazy, but I do expect them to be in every game they play. In third place, I have the Bills, and you know the Bills are going to be right there with the Jets all season. Their defense will keep them in games, but it all relies on the development of Josh Allen. They don't have flashy names there, but they have a solid team. I think they have one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL, but I just think they're a couple years away. And in fourth place, I have the Miami Dolphins. Alright, so I'm not a big Josh Rosen guy, and I don't really like their roster. I don't have much to say about Miami. They're not going to be good next year, and I firmly believe they will be drafting first overall, and they'll probably be taking a quarterback next year, which I still believe. And you know, things have gotten pretty weird there. I love Brian Flores, and I think it will take some time for him though. So stay patient, Miami fans. This one is going to take some time. Moving on to the AFC North, I have the Steelers in first place. Now, they're an injury away on offense from probably falling apart, but I trust their consistency. They really are a stable franchise, and I love the direction they're heading in. Replacing Le'Veon and Antonio for James Conner and Juju is so good, and I can't stress that enough. These guys are grinders on and off the field, are great teammates, and have fun. Like, what's not to love about them? The only thing I worry about is Ben and his health, but if he's healthy, I don't see how they don't finish first. Now, the death of their wide receivers coach Daryl Drake could be an extremely motivating thing to happen to the team, or it could derail their season like what happened with Tony Sparano last year with the Vikings. I think this team is going to play for their coach, and I expect the Steelers to rebound this year. In second, I have the Browns. Now, I didn't want to put them in first, but I wanted to give them credit. You'll have to wait and see if they'll be in the wild card. There is no reason they shouldn't be. Their defense should take a huge step and be one of the NFL's best, and Baker should be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL with all the weapons he has all over the place. The only reason I have him in second is basically an insurance policy to protect myself in case the thing blows up. I don't think it will, but that's just in case. In third place, I have the Baltimore Ravens, and I personally don't like the direction the Ravens are heading in. And this year is going to be a huge prove-it year for them. Last year does not matter to me when evaluating them, and this year is going to prove a lot, and I mean a lot about them. I don't expect them to be a playoff team. I firmly believe they'll be the third best team in their division until Big Ben retires, and if the Steelers don't get a good replacement. All I have to say about the Ravens is prove it. Prove that Lamar Jackson is a legit starter and can get you to the playoffs in a whole season. You might say he did last year, but I really need to see it again to believe it. I might be really hard on them, but I do really think they're one of the most overrated teams in the NFL. And in fourth, I have the Bengals, and I love Zach Taylor and that hire. I love the changes they're finally making, but they won't be a good team with Andy Dalton starting at quarterback. I have seen enough of him as a QB, and honestly as a starter in the NFL. I think he would be a tremendous backup, but his time in Cincinnati should be over. And until the Bengals won't be doing anything in the NFL, so I don't expect much out of them this year. Moving on to the AFC South, I have the Texans in first place. This is going to be their coming out party, and if it's not, I'm going to be livid because everything lines up for it to be. They were in first in the South last season for a reason, and I think they're going to be first again this year with Deshaun Watson leading them. Just like Mahomes had his year last year, this should be Watson's time. I do worry about their offensive line, but other than that, they should be a hard team to play. I do kind of question the running backs, but I think Watson will be putting in a lot of work for this team, and I expect him to be one of the best in the NFL. In second place, I have the Jaguars. Now, they could be surprised and be a great team this year. They have a new Super Bowl winning quarterback to bring them consistency. Their defense is still great and one of the NFL's best. They don't have much pressure because of the disappointment of last year and how good the top two teams in their division were, so they could be a sneaky good team this year. I think they'll be a close team to make the playoffs, but with only 6 teams that can make it, I feel like they're going to have to make a great case during the season to show it. They're capable, but the last time they were capable, they didn't show up. It also helps that Andrew Luck is no longer on the Colts. And in third place, I actually have the Colts. Now, this is just a tragedy. They really had a perfect rebuild with Chris Ballard as GM and Frank Reich coaching the team, and I still believe strongly in the organization, and I still think that these hard times ahead of them will be rough, but it will turn around quickly. Andrew Luck is retiring from a Super Bowl contender, and it's one of the biggest stories since Barry Sanders retired. And honestly, you could make a case it's even bigger because of how important the quarterback position is. You just feel horrible for them. I still really like their team overall, and I think Jacoby is a solid quarterback. So I actually have them in third, just based on how much I like their roster. I still think they can overcome this, and I don't think that's rock bottom for them. I think they fell a lot, but I would be stunned if they were a bottom 5 team in the NFL next year. I really would be. And in fourth place, I have the Titans. I think this is it for Marcus Mariota. I love the Titans head coach Mike Vrabel and everything about him. I think he will do great things down there, but by the process of elimination, they are just not as good as the others on the list. Yes, even with Andrew Luck being done, I still believe the Colts are better than the Titans, and I think the Titans overachieved last year, and they'll be in the running for a quarterback next year, and until then, they're just going to float. Finally, we have the AFC West, and in first place, to no one's surprise, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. They should be one of the elite teams in the NFL. They could have won the Super Bowl last year, and I expect nothing different. Andy Reid is going to get over the hump eventually, and it's just a matter of when. Him and Mahomes are the next great duo in the NFL once Brady and Brees retire, and last year was not a fluke. The only thing holding Mahomes back is his teammates, and if they can stay on the field, they should be a Super Bowl contender and one of the best in the NFL. In second place, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have one of the best defenses and have one of the best offenses. The only problem is that they can't stay healthy. Derwin James being out is going to hurt. Melvin Gordon not playing until he gets a contract is going to slow down their offense. I feel bad for Phillip Rivers because he has a great setup. He has an amazing coaching staff and a good defense, but I just don't feel like he can overcome some of these things that have happened to the team so far. They're great at facing adversity, so I think they could make the playoffs, but this season might get ugly for the Chargers. In third place, I have the Denver Broncos. Now, Denver could be a surprise team this year. Vic Fangio is going to have one of the best defenses playing, and back to probably when they were playing at their Super Bowl contention. I think Joe Flacco is the best quarterback for them since Manning, and I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder. The Broncos could do great things. I mean, Joe was a cold man back in the playoffs in his career with the Ravens, and if he plays like that, he could do really great things. I love their running game, I love their defense, and I think the Broncos could really be a playoff team. Don't sleep on them. Finally, in fourth, I have the Oakland Raiders. Oh, the Raiders. Where do I start? Just watching Hard Knocks, you can just see so much wrong with them. Derek Carr is such a weird guy, and I don't understand how anyone would want him leading their franchise. They have so many distractions and not many weapons, so I don't expect much. I think they'll be one of the worst teams in the league, and I don't have much to say besides that. Now, moving on to the NFC, we have the NFC East. In first place, this one was easy. I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Carson Wentz is probably an MVP candidate, and I think the Eagles are the least talked about great team in the NFL. I think Carson Wentz is the most underrated player in the NFL. The only thing I hate about the Eagles is they might get a little full of themselves sometimes, but they've proven it by winning a Super Bowl, so I can't doubt them. They are the favorites in the NFC East. In second place, I have the Cowboys. The Cowboys are the hardest team to judge in the NFL for me. I think their defense and the way they have scouted and built is incredible. They have great weapons on offense and a solid quarterback. I just think they're going to get beat out by some teams that are just better all around than them, and I don't know if they can help that. I think they'll have a winning record, but I think their wild card spot is going to come down to a couple teams, and I don't know if they can do it. But we will see. In third place, I have the Giants, and I think the Giants are getting made fun of just like all the other New York sports teams, and I think they'll improve this year. It might not be by that much, but I think it won't be as bad. I do think they'll be bad, but I don't think they'll be as bad as the Redskins, so there's something positive to say. I think once their receivers get on the field and healthy, they should be able to do some damage because they have one of the best running backs in the league. Again, I don't expect much, but I do expect improvement. And in fourth place, I have the Washington Redskins. Where do you start with them? I expect them to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're a mess in every single part of the organization. Starting from the owner, to the front office, to the coaching staff, I don't think this is going to be a pretty year for them. I don't think they get talked about enough with how dysfunctional they are. They don't have many star players. They didn't show me anything last year that gives me hope. I just can't wait to see how bad it goes for them this year because they need to make change and I want them to fail so we can see that change. Next, we have the NFC North. This is going to be a bloodbath between the top three teams, and starting out in first place, I have the Packers. I expect great things from them this year. Aaron Rodgers has to prove it this year and get his image back on track. Now, I don't think they have the best overall team in the North, but they have the best quarterback and that makes up for a lot. I think the Packers, barring any injuries, should be a productive team with their new head coach Matt LaFleur, and the Packers should be a playoff team, even a Super Bowl contender. In second place, I have the Vikings. Now, this team is either going to prove everyone wrong or just flat out fail. I expect the addition of Gary Kubiak to help solidify the offense, and they will have a season that they should have had last year. I expect them to have one of the best running games in the NFL. I expect Kirk Cousins to play to his standards and be a good, consistent quarterback. I'm not expecting anything out of this world, but they were a win away from the Super Bowl 2 years ago for a reason. I think they'll be in the mix for a playoff spot, and they're going to be a competitive team for sure. In third place, and maybe the most controversial pick, I have the Chicago Bears. Okay, hear me out. I hear so many people hyping this team up, and honestly, rightfully so. They were really good last year. Their defense is the best in the NFL for a reason, but I expect them to take a step backwards this year. I think they have such high expectations, and I mean so high it hits the Chicago skyline, but I don't think Mitchell has it in him. I never liked this pick because imagine if they had Deshaun Watson instead. But you could argue that the Bears don't need an amazing quarterback to get far because they almost won a Super Bowl with Rex Grossman. And yes, that is true, but I just think there are so many teams in the NFC that are going to give them a hard time, and I just don't know if the Bears are ready to do it again this year. This year is a huge prove-it year for them, and I'm just not buying in. I think the loss of Vic Fangio is really going to hurt them, so if you hate this pick, I'm sorry, but this is just my opinion, and I'm going to stick with it, and if I'm dead wrong, I'm dead wrong. Finally, in fourth, I have the Lions, and I think we can all agree on this. Man, Matt Patricia is full of himself. I love this man in New England, but when he got to Detroit, I've just been cringing the entire time. I don't think this program is heading into the right direction. I think Matt is doing everything opposite of what New England would do. This team just doesn't have anything that tells me they're going to improve, and I honestly think they'll be a bottom 5 team in the NFL. I feel bad for Matthew Stafford because he's dealing with injuries and his wife is sick, so he has a lot on his plate, but I just don't expect this to be a good year for them. Now we have the NFC South, and in first place, to no one's surprise, I have the Saints. New Orleans is a Super Bowl contender and will be one of the best teams in the NFL. There's nothing I don't like about this team. Excellent running game, a star receiver, they finally have a good tight end, and their defense is so much better compared to some of the other seasons for Drew Brees in New Orleans. I love this team so much, and ever since their loss in the NFC Championship game, I think they'll have a huge chip on their shoulder and will be ready to take back what's theirs. In second place, I have the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons could have won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they're not far from that. Matt Ryan is crushing it right now and doesn't get enough respect. The only problem with Atlanta is their defense, and I don't expect them to be a Super Bowl contender, but I do expect them to be a really good team, and they'll be in every game they play, and I think they'll be in the playoffs. In the third spot, I have the Carolina Panthers. Now the Panthers rely on the health of Cam Newton. That's simple. If Cam gets hurt, their season falls apart. Now the Panthers are your generic NFL team. They'll be good. They'll be hard to beat, but I don't expect anything crazy from them. They seem past their prime from when they lost to the Broncos in the Super Bowl, and I don't really have huge expectations for them, and I do like their offense, but Cam has to be healthy for them to do anything, and I just am not believing that will happen. In the fourth and final spot, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now the Bucs are going to be tough for me to place. I love Bruce Arians, I expect big things from him this year, and I expect him to actually turn this program around. I also don't know what to expect from Jameis Winston this year. Like, Jameis could go back to how he played in college with Bruce as head coach, because he's a quarterback whisperer, but I just can't buy into that. So I had to put them in last. I think they're going to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL, but I just can't buy into them just yet. Finally, we have the NFC West, and starting out, I have the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are going to be a Super Bowl contender. Nothing really changes from last year except maybe the health of Todd Gurley, but even if he doesn't play as much, I do believe in Goff. I think he could do some great things there. You know, there is a reason they went to the Super Bowl last year. I think they could actually be riding under the radar a little bit, and Sean McVay is an elite coach who knows how to build a great team. I love everything they do, and they are the Patriots of the West, and I think they'll be a threat for a long time in the NFL. They are not going anywhere. In second place, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I really like how they played last year through the adversity with all the players leaving, and I like Pete Carroll how he coaches, and I really respect him. Russell Wilson is a leader, and I think the Seahawks will be hovering around the playoffs. I don't expect them to win the division, but I do expect them to be a team on the verge of being a contender. I don't really have much else to say besides that. Now we have the third place San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are such a weird team to place. If Jimmy G plays like he did in New England, and when he first got to the 49ers, things could go really well. But if he plays like he did during the offseason or gets hurt, this team could be in trouble. I don't really have much expectations for them, but I do think really highly of their head coach Kyle Shanahan, and the 49ers might not be a Super Bowl contender, but they'll be right in the middle of the NFL. Alright, so in last place I have the Arizona Cardinals. I like their offense. I think it could be pretty good. David Johnson should have a much better year. I like Christian Kirk and obviously Larry Fitzgerald. I even think Kyler could do pretty well, but I just think they're going to have a transition year, and that takes some time. They're hiding their offense in the preseason, and Kyler hasn't looked great, but I think that if they're being honest about their offense, this should be a good team. And if Cliff is lying, then there's not much to expect from them. So that's that. I'm not taking a risk with them because there's no need. The Cardinals shouldn't be much of a threat this year. So now that I've gone through every division with my rankings, we have to talk about the playoffs. In the AFC, I have the Chiefs in first place. Then I have the New England Patriots in second place. In third, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then I have the Texans in fourth. And my two wild cards are being the Chargers at the 5 spot and finishing with the Broncos at the 6. My first two teams out are the Browns and the Jaguars. Yes, that is my AFC playoff prediction. Say what you want about my wildcard teams. I don't care. I'm going with my heart, and this is what it's telling me. Now, in the NFC, I have the Saints in first place, the Rams in the 2 spot, the Eagles at the 3, the Green Bay Packers, yes, the Packers at the 4, and the 2 wild cards were the hardest things for me, but I decided to go with my heart again, and I have the Minnesota Vikings at the 5 and the Atlanta Falcons at the 6. My first 2 teams out are the Cowboys and the Seahawks. All right. So now that we have that out of the way, you guys can make fun of me for having the Broncos in the playoffs, or not having the Browns, or not having the Bears, but this is my opinion. I'm just going off how I feel, and I don't want to lie or not be myself, so this is what I got. Now, in the AFC title game, I have the Chiefs and the Patriots in a matchup just exactly like last year. And in the NFC, I have the Saints hosting the Eagles. My MVP is going to be Deshaun Watson because I love his chances at a breakout year. My runner-up will be Carson Wentz because he's going to put himself back on the map and show the world what he's really all about, and all the hate he got was pretty stupid. For Coach of the Year, I have Andy Reid. All I see are his disciples getting a lot of credit, but it's time for Andy to get some credit. I really have high expectations for his team this year. And for Offensive Player of the Year, I have Deshaun Watson. And the Defensive Player of the Year for me is Khalil Mack because he's the scariest player in the NFL right now, and I don't expect anything but the best from him. Now, back to the title games. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning the AFC title game over the Patriots and going to the Super Bowl for the AFC. And in the NFC, I have the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Saints and also going to the Super Bowl. So the matchup in Miami will be the Chiefs and the Eagles, and winning the Super Bowl, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. If all stay true to the plan, the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL, and I expect nothing less from them. Mahomes is a superstar, and he can carry them there. I think the Eagles are the most underrated team in the NFL, and should be in contention again. I also think it'd be fitting if Andy Reid won his first Super Bowl over the Eagles. So these are my predictions. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. I couldn't predict everything because there's a lot of stuff I could just throw a dart at and hope it lands on, and I don't want to just start predicting who will win some of these awards or finish with the most yards because it wouldn't be authentic on my part. So I hope you enjoyed my picks, and let me know your Super Bowl predictions down below because I really would love to hear about them. So thank you guys for watching. Yes, make fun of all of my predictions down below. I would love to hear, I would love to get a good laugh out of this because again, some of my predictions are off the beaten path, and you know, I'm just gonna go with my heart, and my heart tells me some of these teams aren't gonna make the playoffs. So what if I'm wrong? That's the fun thing about predicting games is not everybody's gonna be right. So all right, thanks guys.